I'm Lara Trump, coming to you from Trump Tower in New York City. You wouldn't know it by watching the fake news media, but our economy is booming. Every day we see a new announcement about worker bonuses, wage increases, and investments in our economy by businesses. These are all thanks to President Trump's economic policies, including his historic tax cuts and the elimination of hundreds of regulations. The president's economic policies are starting to have a real ripple effect across business sectors and communities throughout America. With me to break down the impacts of the booming Trump economy is a capital markets advisor, real estate expert, and media commentator, Jason Meister. Hey, Jason, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Laura.
Now, I'm really interested to get your take on what's happening in our economy. So far, hundreds of companies have announced major employee bonuses and over $100 billion in new capital investments. Are these stories a true reflection of what's happening in the broader economy?
The short answer is absolutely. Laura, the economy is firing on all cylinders. We have the proof is in the pudding. We have an unemployment rate at 4.1%. The lowest level in 17 years. We have consumer confidence at a 17-year high. We have a GDP for the first time in nearly 2 decades that's growing above 3% growth. So we have all these positive impacts to the market and to the economy, and it's doing great things for the jobs and for the wages.
Yeah, it's been very exciting to see all this happen. And, you hear the other side of the coin, which is that the Democrats claim that this is all due to President Obama. Funny how it all came within the first year of President Trump's leadership. And now we see everything just continuing with this trend. It's really exciting. And I know you work as well with overseas investments in the United States. Have international investors started to realize that America is open for business, as the president has said? How do you think that's going to help our economy grow?
The foreign investors that I'm speaking to are absolutely interested in investing in the U.S. And they understand that the U.S. is now finally open for business again. We can't underestimate that we just passed the greatest tax cut and reform bill in American history.
So great, I know.
And those tax cuts and that corporate tax rate going from 35% to 21% is going to bring massive foreign investment. So we're in the beginning of an economic boom and prosperity. And those foreign investors realize and recognize that America is open for business again.
Jason, in addition to being a successful businessman, you also represent the important voice of millennials. What do the current economic trends mean for millennials? Are more young people getting new jobs right now?
The answer is yes, Laura. The economy is booming, and every day we set new records with the economy. We have jobs growth, we have wages growing, and that's going to benefit millennials. Millennials are 40% of the workforce, and they're getting jobs and they're getting wages and they're growing.
Yeah. And speaking of millennials, how about the housing market as it relates to millennials? Were millennials able to afford home purchases over the past decade? And what do you think new trends are saying in terms of that whole thing? Home purchases since President Trump's tax cuts went into effect. How have things been looking?
Sure. So millennials are typically about 40% of existing home sales, and they dropped dramatically under Obama's term. However, in the last year under President Trump, millennials were 36% of existing home sales. So they've actually climbed dramatically and in a positive way because millennials are starting to form families again, they're having children, and they're dipping their toes in the housing market. So this is a very positive thing for the housing market.
Now that economic benefits are helping young and minority voters in both urban and suburban markets, will this good news translate in new votes for the GOP in 2018 and for President Trump's reelection in 2020? What do you think?
So we have to look at the last election and the revolution that we had. Actually, among minority voters, President Trump did better than both John McCain and Mitt Romney combined. So he was already doing better. And I think that when these tax cuts and this reform bill starts to really impact the economy and puts money into the pockets of millennials and minorities, and they have jobs and they have wage growth, they are going to cross the aisle and vote for President Trump in 2020. And there will be more of them, especially when he's draining the swamp and he's renovating the Republican Party.
Absolutely. And I say it all the time, even if they don't tell anyone, they are going to see more money in their paycheck. They're going to know that things are a little better for them from an economic perspective. And we all know that people vote with their wallets. And I really agree with you there. I think that we're going to see a lot more people voting for President Trump in 2020 because you and I both know we got to keep him for another 7 years, Jason.
See it, Laura. We see it in the approval rating. He's got a 50% approval rating. It's happening already.
Well, and you know what I always say about those approval ratings, and I've said this about any of the polls since before the election, since the campaign, I never believe them. I think we're in a really interesting climate right now. People aren't really speaking their minds when it comes to those polls. They're afraid to say so. So if the polls have him at a 50% approval rating, it's got to be way higher than that. I always say so. So we'll have to wait and see in 2020 how that all plays out. But I really do think that we're going to keep him around for quite some time. Jason, thank you so much for joining me today. You have great insights about how the president's policies are helping so many people across every sector of our economy. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining me as well. We know the fake news media are hiding the truth about this booming economy, but don't worry, we'll always bring you the real news about President Trump's winning record for America. I'm Lara Trump from Trump Tower in New York City. Good night, everybody.